I'm going to be introducing our chief guest today, who is Captain Uday Shankar Gelli. So, Sir Uday Shankar Gelli studied at HPS Begumpet. He passed out with first class in ISC in 1967. He was a
Yeah.
prefect, the deputy head boy, the athletic captain, the first batch of President Scout, and he represented the school in various sports. He joined NDA through UPSC competitive national level examination consisting of various tests at different levels. He was a rank holder in the UPSA test, standing in the top 10. After 3 years of rigorous training, he passed out as a cadet sergeant major. After 18 months of training in the Indian Air Force, he commissioned as a pilot in the fighter stream in December 1972.
And in 1973, he flew fighter planes and helicopters while in the Indian Air Force. He opted for release from the service after completing nearly 11 years of service. And in 1983, he flew as a commercial helicopter pilot for various foreign and Indian companies and worked as a senior pilot and base manager, executive pilot, and controller of operations. In 1995, he worked as a country manager for India for one of the top helicopter companies and was the chief of aviation, general manager, and managing director, and the CEO of various helicopter companies.
Good evening,
Yeah.
girls and boys, ladies and gentlemen. Can you hear me clearly?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
sir.
sir.
Okay. So it's very interesting to hear your perspective. All of you are at a stage when you have to make up your mind to pursue the next career. So this is the right time to start thinking about what is the kind of career that I'm looking at, what are the possibilities that I'm looking at, what are the opportunities that I'm looking at. So these are the things that you people have been talking about it. I'm hearing all this while. So there was a item that was talked about the window of opportunity, the good times, the bad times, and the possibilities that you have as you go forward in your life. So an opportunity is a situation in which it is possible for you to do something that you want to, and it really exists for a very short time. So that's why they say, then when an opportunity knocks, you should just take it. It is basically, it lasts for a very short period. So it is left to you to grab that opportunity and go forward. Possibilities are many. As a Kaushal, if you want to know what exactly you, yeah, like I said, you are at a particular stage where you want to kind of decide on a career, which way to go forward. What I would like to briefly mention here is that, like when we are growing up and leaving the school in 1960s, the opportunities were very, very few and limited. And subsequently, later, perhaps when it was time for your parents looking for opportunities, there are many more options that are opened up. But today, if you're looking for an option, a career, an opportunity, there are so many of them that one tends to get confused. So you have to be very clear in your mind. What is the thing that we want to do that? Because earlier
Yes.
the people used to say that, okay, I want to be an engineer or a doctor, or subsequently an IT specialist, an engineer, software guy, that kind of things. And gradually, slowly, things have started opening up. So the one thing that I want to tell you is that the points that you covered, the risk taking and the opportunities that come your way. Before that, I would briefly talk to you about the defense services, because having been in the defense services, I would really be happy for all of you to consider that as a career option for girls and boys. During my time, there were very limited opportunities for the girls to consider, at least in the defense services. But now everything is opened up. As you would have seen in the newspapers, the girls have started flying fighters, the ultimate in the aviation side. They started flying helicopter, they started flying transport aircraft, and now they're flying the fighter planes. In fact, we have a lady pilot who's flying the latest state-of-art fighter plane. It's called the Rafale, which you would have heard about it. So that is something that you consider. And it's just not flying. There are so many other avenues within the defense services, whether it's the Army, Air Force, Navy. It's not just the flying. The ladies, the girls can go onto the ships, sailing. There are captains who are now women captains of the ships. Just imagine a huge tanker that you're commanding. And in the Army, there are many segments that are open for the girls these days. So this is something that you need to consider. Good times and bad times. You say that, there are good times, there are bad times. It all depends on how we look at it. In my case, just to quote an example, what the bad time was when I had to actually eject out of an aircraft, fighter plane. And in the life of a fighter pilot, this is the worst case scenario, to punch out, to eject. Because what happens is that the plane that you're flying, when you fly a plane, there is something called a logbook which you sign it off before you take off. That means now you are the person responsible for the plane. You are actually the owner. You are taking the ownership of the plane. So it is a duty and responsibility to get the aircraft safely back onto the ground. These days, the aircraft cost hundreds and thousands of crores. Latest state-of-the-art aircraft can cost as much as 1,000 crores. Just imagine you're flying an asset which is 1,000 crores and you want to bring it safely. So that is the last option that a pilot takes to eject out when it reaches a situation that he knows it's impossible to get this plane back. So that is a time when you take a decision, okay? And personally speaking, that was a tough for me because I was injured in the time during that accident. And then I had to decide how to take forward the life after this accident. But again, along with this bad times also comes good times. So then I had an opportunity to fly helicopters, which I very much enjoyed. So I would say that everything was not lost when you have an incident or when you say that, okay, this is my bad luck, this is my bad times. Bad times will always be followed by good times if you're positive about it and if you consider that that is a passing stage. Remember that a good judgment comes with experience. Like someone said, a good judgment comes with experience. But unfortunately, experience comes from a bad judgment. So you've got to have that experience. Good or bad, it is an experience. So we also talked about risk taking, like Renee brought out my career briefly. After leaving school, I had any number of opportunities. I mean, not any number, but limited opportunities. But those days we used to write all kinds of entrance examinations. And this particular examination for the National Defense Academy is conducted by the Union Public Service Commission. That is an all India level. More or less similar to how you have for the IITs and the IIMs, that kind of stuff. But it is conducted by the Union Public Service Commission because it's going into a government job. So you go through a kind of a grueling test, then you get selected, you go to the National Defense Academy. Incidentally, this is the only academy of its type in the world where all the three services are trained together. So first 3 years is a common training, the Army, Navy, and the Air Force. In fact, today, for the first time in the country, we have a record that the Chief of the Air Staff, Chief of the Indian Air Force, Chief of the Indian Army, Chief of the Indian Navy, they're all from together from the National Defense Academy, from the same batch. It's a record of sorts. What does it all mean? It means that at that particular level, you need to have a good understanding amongst yourself. And there are the philosophy in which this institute was set up. So fairly soon, this academy is going to be opened up for girls also. So you go there for 3 years of study. It combines all kinds of studies. And it's grueling, academic as well as physical, after which you get a degree from the JNU, Jawaharlal Nehru University, either a Bachelor of Science or a Bachelor of Arts. Then you go into the services that you opt for, Air Force, Navy, or the Army. Usually the top lot go to the Air Force, the next lot go to the Navy, and the last lot go to the Army. It doesn't mean that the Army is bad. It just means that there are people who would like to opt, who are fond of aviation or who are fond of sailing, they select the services accordingly. Risk is something that all of us have to take it sometime or other. Like they say that all our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. So have the dream, have a vision, decide what you want to do and go for it. But never mind if you fail. Failure is a kind of an experience once again. You learn from it. So one should not get disappointed from the failures, which I equated as the bad times. So think about that. Once after my ejection from the fighter aircraft, when I went into the helicopters, I found that helicopter flying was really enjoyable. I had an opportunity to fly in the high ranges of the Himalayas. You work, you carry out humanitarian service, you help people, not just the uniformed people, but you help also the people, the civilian mountaineers. On many occasions, I went and rescued people who were injured while climbing the mountains. At the height of 18,000, 19,000, they couldn't come down. Helicopter was the only way. So you do variety of jobs while in the helicopters also. You support the army, you support the Air Force, you support people in the natural calamities. There are many times when we supported the civil administration in the Himalayas, when there are natural flooding and the villages are cut off in the Himalayas. So people had to be brought in from one place to the other side. So you get opportunity to do a variety of things, which I'm sure you will enjoy it. Following this, I took a risk. Risk in the sense that I wanted to try what it was like flying in a commercial helicopter. So I left a comfortable position. Remember that when you are a gazetted officer in the Indian Defense Services, these days you are paid very well, you are looked after very, very well. There is a whole ecosystem that looks after you, whether it is accommodation, the messing, the medical, transportation, everything is looked after. Imagine you complete your, just as an example, you do your degree, let's say you do a engineering from IIT, you got a job in a very nice software company, you got posted to Bangalore, and salary is good. You go to Bangalore, you're not been to Bangalore. Let's say somebody is coming from North. So he has to find his accommodation. He has to find a way to get to his place from residence to office. He has to make arrangement for his food. Obviously, he cannot keep eating all the time the outside food or the Pizza Hut or the McDonald's. In the defense services, all these things are taken care of. When you go to a station as an officer, Air Force Base, Army Base, everything is looked after. There are accommodation already reserved for you. There is a messing facility, extremely subsidized. All the medical care is taken and accommodation provided at a very, very nominal rent. So these are the kind of things that are there. You're living in a rented apartment. Again, coming to the example of Bangalore, something goes wrong with the bathroom work, plumbing. You have to find a plumber, get hold of him, get it done there. It's small things, but in the services, there is an ecosystem that looks after. You don't have to do anything. You just call up the guy and it's all taken care of. So these are some of the things that goes in the different services. But the reason I took an option was that I wanted to take a chance and experience what it was like in the commercial flying. So I did that. But it was not easy when you come out. It was not like, somebody was standing there with an appointment letter. Opportunities were very, very limited in 1983. So that is where I call it a risk. But like I said, again, you have a dream, you pursue it. I had a dream that I should fly commercial, I should fly in different parts of the world. I'd flown in all parts of India. So I said, let me also get an opportunity to fly in different parts of the world. So I waited for a few months, had the first opportunity, may not be the best of the jobs, but I took it. Like Vanilla mentioned that, example of somebody wanting a job, but he refused an offer and finally lost that offer also. But here an offer came my way and I took it. Not the one I wanted, but I wanted a footing. I took it. And once I started flying there, the job that I was looking for subsequently came to me after 2 years down the line and at a much better kind of level, I would say that. But in all my endeavor in this, I was just not looking at the money. The money plays an important role, but they should not be the top in your list. In a list, you've got to list out a career that you're passionate about. If you're passionate about it, you'll make a success. And if you make a success of that career, money will just come your way. So it is not the money. Money matters. I know that these days people always keep looking at the compensation one gets. But believe me, I think the first career that you should be looking at is something that actually interests you, that you're passionate about. Doesn't matter what type of career it is there. It is a career and you should opt for it. You heard about this word, dignity of labor. It says abroad, this dignity of labor is, in fact, exists very much in the society. A driver is a dignified job there, whereas here we consider that a driver as a very common job. But I think every job has its own dignity. So we have to remember. So any job is welcome, provided you're passionate about it. So this is the reason why I went into the civil commercial operations. I had an opportunity to fly for a Canadian company. I flew for a while in Canada, came back to India, continued. Then I had an opportunity to join a French company. I flew there, came back to India. Then I worked for various other companies and subsequently a Qatar-based company for which I came to India. But in all these things, there was an opportunity for me to go abroad and work. 1980s, going to Canada was a piece of cake. A job was offered to me along with the, one could get the citizenship. But at that time, the quality of life was not there. I'd seen that, what happened to the pilots there. So I opted out of it. Similarly, many opportunities did come way, but like I said, it's just not the money itself. There are many other things that you need to consider. One of them is the quality of life. So that is also, I was quite keen. Another one was that I wanted to be in India at the end of the day. So that also guided me to come back to India at all times. When I was working for the Qatar-based company, again an opportunity came. There are many opportunities that came my way, but there was one offer that came to me which was extremely challenging. It was a kind of a make or a break opportunity for me. I took it up. This was to start an Indian aviation company with an Indian collaborators. So the company in Qatar wanted to start a company in India in collaboration to find the correct partners, start all the activities related to the aviation company. To set up an aviation company is a fairly challenging task. It's just not getting like starting a company. You have to get highly qualified people, pilots, engineers, technicians, supporting staff, which I did. If I'd failed in that, that means my career was over because I had meanwhile rejected the other offers. So that offers closed very fast. So when it's a window of opportunity is basically when they say window, it's not a door of opportunity because it's there open for a very short while. You have to be very quick and take a decision and say, okay, this is the one that I want to pursue. So I did. I succeeded. Now, because of which the company came back to me and said, okay, now that you started the company, you lead the company. So because of that, I became the managing director of the company, successfully ran it. And then because I successfully ran it, there was an opportunity, another company, which was again a startup. They asked me to join that company, start it up. So I did that. And finally I stepped out. I'm now an advisor. So there are lessons here. When the opportunity comes, take it. Give it a shot. Don't hesitate in taking a risk. And don't think that bad times are permanent. Bad times are not permanent, so also good times are not permanent. You've got to be prepared for both. You have to remember that. And remember that your dreams can come true if you pursue them. That's most important. So in the process of pursuing my career, there are opportunities to serve a society that was meant to help the industry. Now, there is something that not at this stage, but later on in your life, as you grow older, you find that there is an important aspect in your life that you have to give something back to the society, an industry, a society that really helped you to come up. So that's the reason why I started working with this industry, helicopter industry in the country. And I did that. Okay. Basically, when you want to lead a team, when you want to be the captain of a team or a leader, so one of the important aspects of leadership is that you got to know your people and you have to be one among them.
Right.
Don't show to your team that you're the superior guy, okay, and that the lower guys. Just remember that in any corporate, any company, it's all a team play. Everybody matters. So
Right.
you had to kind of spend a lot of time with the team, encourage them, but also remember that you have to be very strong in your own profession. So just as an example, again, I would like to quote that when you're working on an aircraft is a very, very complex equipment. And there are certain times when the aircraft undergoes a major inspection. When you open up the aircraft, when you say open up the aircraft, means the aircraft is stripped open to all the panels. You actually can see like a skeleton. You can see the aircraft or the engines. Now, as the CEO of the company, I could have just sat down in my cabin and just, seen. He said, okay, that's going on. Or asked my chief engineer, everything is okay, fine. But no, that's not the way. The way to do it is you go spend time with a team. The people are working very hard. They're working from morning till evening. They're very intelligent people, very hardworking people. They're very highly qualified engineers. They're actually working with their hands. So what makes them happy is that as the CEO goes to them, sits down with them, keeps asking, shows the interest in what's happening there, has a cup of tea with them. Let me tell you that that makes a lot of difference. So you have to set an example. You have to make them feel that you're all a part of the team and together you want to succeed, you succeed as a team. That's how it works. So you want to be a leader, be a people's man. People's person is most important anywhere and everywhere. Whether you're leading a team of 6 people or 60 people or 600 people, be a people's person. Okay, okay. What happened is that I was operating out of a town called Bareilly in the Uttar Pradesh. It's very close to Himalayas. So that is where we are supporting the people from. And in the afternoon, we got a call saying that a mountaineering person, it was an Italian team that had gone for the mountaineering at about 18,500 feet. One of the climber, he fell and hurt himself. Now they are at a position where this person could not be carried either forward or backward. I mean, he was in a corner and he had to be pulled out with a helicopter itself. Now, when the climbers, the country makes a request, the request came from the Italian government, to the Indian government, to the Indian Air Force, and they acted very promptly. We got a message, look, there is a person to be rescued. So we went there, we had an approximate idea. So I was given the job of going there in the afternoon, and we had to go to 18,500 feet around there. And remember that there are not huge grounds for landing. So they had to make a small makeshift pad, which is probably just about 20 feet by 20 feet, where you can put the helicopter, only the wheels down there. So it had a very, very small window for errors, extremely small. So we went there and tried to look for a person. In fact, the place that we went there, we could not find the person there, but we are flying low and some people waved at us to indicate that this place that where we have to go slightly further ahead in the valley. So we went there. It is snow-covered mountains. So that time helicopter is fitted with what we call a snowshoes. That is a skid gear, so that when the helicopter lands, it doesn't sink into the snow. So with the help of the people there, they signaled us. We went and landed there, and we did not have much time because it was getting close to the sunset. We were able to pull that man inside and make him lie down and bring him back to Bareilly. I just about saved him because otherwise, and a few hours delay, we would not have been able to pick him up. And if I had to spend the night, his leg would have been amputated. So that was a kind of a rescue that was actually noted down. So at the same time, I would like to narrate a small incident that I experienced. I mean, it's a kind of a thing that probably not many would have experienced. See, when I ejected out of the fighter aircraft, what happens is that you are flying at the speed of about 3 to 350 kilometers at that particular time when I ejected. The ejection seat, it is rocket fired. That means it throws you out of the aircraft with a huge speed. Because of the speed at which you're thrown out, you go up almost about 50 to 60 feet high up in the air, you're thrown out of the seat from the aeroplane. So temporarily, you've experienced what we call a G forces. So people are oriented towards the mechanical side. They will know what is a G force. When we're standing on the ground, we experience what is called a 1G. If you weigh 50 kilos, it is 1G. You're feeling 50 kilos. Now, sometimes in the plane, when you fly, you suddenly feel you're pressed against a seat. When an aircraft is turning a commercial airplane, that time you're feeling about 1.5G. That means temporarily your body is experiencing, instead of 50 kilos, 75 kilos. People who go up in the space, in the satellite, so rockets, they also go to the G system because initially are kicked up with a huge force. But then they're lying down. Why they lie down is that because there is huge force that comes onto the body. But in a fighter aircraft, you're sitting when you're ejected. So temporarily experience 35 times the weight, your weight, 35G, what we call. It's a split second. But in the split second, your body takes huge punishment. If you're weighing 50 kilos, you can imagine 1,750 kilos of weight on your body. It happens like that. So your body has to be strong, your back has to be strong, and you have to have a particular posture to take this shock. Anyway, I ejected. My ejection was successful. My parachute opened and as came down from about 100 feet. It was in the desert of Rajasthan. It just so happened that I landed next to a tree. But then I realized that my back was hurt because it was paining. So I was just lying on the ground with the parachute lying next to me. So the person came, one villager came running to me and he asked me, he said, "Can I do anything for you?" I said, "Yes, please go inform the police station that I'm here so that they can inform my Air Force station and they can bring a rescue helicopter." So he went away. Then after that, another villager came. He looked like a smart guy. He asked me, he said, "Are you hurt?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Can you move?" I cannot move. Now there is something called a survival pack that comes along with the ejection seat. So the survival packs contains all the equipment packed very, very nicely for you to survive either in water or a desert or a jungle. Everything is there in that. It is small food, rations, your pyro guns. That means you have a small gun with which you can fire a cartridge and it gives a green signal, red signal to attract. And it was lying next to me about 10, 15 feet away. Now this guy coolly went, he unbuckled that survival pack and he walked away with that. And I was shouting at him, I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "Sir, don't worry, I'll go and inform the police, but you take care." And he just walked away. I mean, we are narrating in Hindi. So this is a funny incident. So that happened to me. But yeah, this is the kind of things that are there. And I can tell you another thing that happened was that in the forward bases, now Jodhpur is a forward base where I was operating from. We are close to the western region, western border. So we are going for night operation to the western border. And the air traffic controller, he was asked to put the landing lights because at night we had to have the landing lights. And the air traffic controller was told late in the evening that he has to stay back for the night flight. And the poor chap has been on duty from morning till evening, so he wasn't very happy, but it's a job he had to complete. So we landed at that particular base, very close to the border on the western regions. And we were 4 helicopters. 3 of us landed. The senior guy, who was the last aircraft to land, now that guy knew this air traffic controller by voice. So he just wanted to fool around with him. He came to land, but he didn't land, he just overshot. And he transmitted to the air traffic controller. He just said, "Guess who?" He wanted him to play kind of a guessing game. So he went around. Again, he wanted to come for landing. The air traffic controller said, "I'm sorry, unable to guess your name." Again, he said, "Try, guess who?" And he went around. The air traffic controller was getting tired. He was past his time. So the third time when this guy was coming to land, the controller knew that he's going to play the same mischief. So well before he landed and well before he said, "Guess who?" he put the lights off of the runway. He said, "Guess where?" And the pilot said, "Well, I'm sorry, I can't see the runway. I can't guess." He said, "Okay, I'm so and so." He said, "Okay, now you can land," and he put the lights on. So it was a kind of a small, humor that goes on between the pilots and the air traffic controllers. Guess who? Guess where? Yeah. Thank you.